All right, so in the last lesson, we mentioned that it's not very good user experience to let your website simply hang and time out once the user has submitted their details. They're not going to have much confidence in this newsletter if we don't give them some feedback, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Now, what if instead of console logging, we actually sent some data back to the user? So as a challenge, I want you to send a success message if the status code was 200 and an error message if either we got an error or the status code was not 200. So pause the video and see if you can complete that challenge. All right, so that wasn't so hard. All we had to do was to delete our console logs and instead use res.send to send back some data. So if there was an error, we're going to say there was an error with signing up. Please try again. And if there wasn't an error with making the request, then there could still be an error when MailChimp is trying to process the data that we've sent over. So we're going to have to check also in here for the status code. So response.status code. If this is equal to 200, then that means everything went brilliantly and we can res.send successfully subscribed. Look forward to brilliant newsletters. But if it wasn't a status code of 200, then we're going to send the same error message to our client. Now, we can't assume that they're going to understand status codes, so I'm going to resist sending them a 401 or a 400 and letting them figure out what that was all about. But we're just going to send a stock message saying there was an error with signing up, please try again, or contact the developer if you have a problem. All right, so now let's hit save and let's try this again. So I'm just going to add in some mumbo jumbo and I'm going to click sign me up, and instead of our previous situation where the browser was hanging waiting for the server to respond, in this case our server did in fact respond and said that everything was successful, you are successfully subscribed. So that works pretty well, and we can test the error message as well if we simply comment out our body. So let's go over to localhost again and let's try signing up again. I get the error message because we excluded our data from our post request. Now, this works, but it's a bit plain, right? Nobody wants to go on a website that looks nice initially, and then after a bit of interaction, it ends up looking really, really plain. So what if we wanted to use Bootstrap to jazz it up a bit? Well, we can, because previously we created the beginnings of the success.html and the failure.html, in addition to our signup.html. So here we can include some Bootstrap code that will quickly give us a nice looking page that looks a lot better than what we had before. And we can also include buttons and allow the user to interact with it. So I'm going to head over to the Bootstrap website and I'm going to head over to components and I'm going to add a Jumbotron to our website. Something that looks a bit like this. Something that looks a bit like this. So let's go ahead and copy all of this code and we're going to add our HTML boilerplate. This one is going to have a title of failure, which sounds a bit sad, but let's paste our code for our Jumbotron and the H1 is going to say, uh-oh. And we're also going to have a Jumbotron in our success.html. And this one is going to say, Now, in order to use Bootstrap, of course, we need our Bootstrap style sheet. So let's go ahead and copy that over to our success and our failure websites. And now, instead of sending simply a message, we want to send over these files, depending on whether if it was successful or not. So pause the video and see if you can change the code so that it will do that. Okay, so all we had to do is to change res.send to res.send file. And the file we're going to send is either the failure.html or it's going to be the success.html. And I'm just going to copy this one over to here when we have an error as well. So now let's check it out. Try some random stuff and let's hit sign me up. And awesome, you've been successfully signed up to the newsletter. Look forward to lots of awesome content. So that's pretty cool. And let's test out our failure site. Brilliant. So it's sending over the right pages. Now I just have to change this title. Now there's one other problem that I'd like to address. It would be nice if they failed on signing up to be able to try again. And if they had a big button here that said try again, that takes them back to the original page over here, that would be pretty nice, right? So we can do this by using our page over here. We can simply add a form that includes a submit button. And this button will say try again, and it will have the action of posting to a new route, which is the failure route. Now our form is not going to have a class, but our button is going to get some Bootstrap classes, namely BTN, BTN large, BTN warning to turn it yellow. So now let's try again to go to our failure page. And now you can see we have a try again button. But at the moment, it doesn't work because we don't yet have a route defined for the failure route that's making a post request. So let's do that here. Below our post request for the home route, I'm going to add another one for our failure route. And this one is going to have a completion handler that redirects the user to the home route. So I can simply say res.redirect, and the path that I want to redirect it to is simply the home route. So now when we end up on that failure route, then when we click this button, it will take us right back to the sign up page. So that means when I click this button that says try again, we're going to trigger a post request to the failure route, and that is going to be caught by our server over here, and it's going to redirect to the home route, which triggers this app.get, and it sends the sign up page as the file to be rendered on screen. So that's pretty much all the functionality that we need for our very simple newsletter sign up page. Now, there's a whole world of customization that you can add to this. And of course, you can make it even more complex with better pages, better rendering, and customizing these pages. But what's more important than that is how do we get our server to not just be hosted locally? Because at the moment, this website only works when we're running our servers locally on our computer. How can I put this onto the World Wide Web so that we can send our friends and family and clients and customers a URL so that they can go ahead and use this website and sign up to our MailChimp list as well. Well, that is what we're going to tackle in the next lesson, where we make our website go live so that it's a real web app available on the World Wide Web. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson.